I'll ask the same question of each person. You will start with the board member. You're a member of the board, and how long have you been on the board?
I was appointed to the board on August the 29th of 2016.
Okay, and so you are one of the board members that that was there when some of these incidents took place.
Yes.
Okay, was the board or you ever made aware of any of these incidents?
I was made aware of an incident during first would you mind if I kind of give you some background?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you so much. And before I begin, just thank you all so much for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before this honorable body of women legislators. The work that you all are doing here is extremely important. Not only to you, I assure you that it is extremely important to me as a mother, a citizen of Louisiana, and of course, as a member of the LSU Board of Supervisors. So I want you to understand that this is extremely, extremely important to me. And I will do my best to make sure that we never revisit these issues again, that these things never occur again. I know that you guys are receiving a lot of information on trying to understand what we do. President Henderson just kind of gave you an explanation, but let me explain, if you will allow me to explain my understanding of what we do as a LSU Board of Supervisors and how we work. So we are on the policy and governance. We work on the policy and governance as well. So we are not involved in the day-to-day operations at LSU. So oftentimes all the time, anytime that we receive information, it's based on the information that someone decided to share with us, right? So we have no day-to-day knowledge of what's happening. So as it relates to the question you asked me, I was, as a member of the athletics committee, as the chair of the athletics committee, told that there would be an investigation into an issue involving an issue where something was it was found that Verge Osbury had received a text message from a student athlete, and that was being investigated. So that was what I was told.
What year was that?
I can't be sure what year that was, but I can tell you I was the chair of athletics at the time.
So when you were the chair of athletics committee, you were informed of investigations surrounding the athletic department, but not the details of it.
I was not informed of all issues. I was informed about one that I can recall.
How did they cherry pick what you were informed about?
That I cannot tell you, but that is oftentimes what happens, is that information that is shared is sometimes cherry picked.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about your role as chair of the athletics committee. When there was serious issues that came up with the athletics department in the area of sexual harassment and misconduct of a coach or a player, should you have been apprised of that?
I'm not really sure of the answer to that because, again, we are on a policy and governance level. So the only person who actually reports to us is the president. So, Winston, can you help me as far as what?
And I'm asking because
there?
everyone keeps saying policy and governance, but as I deep dive into this, governance of the athletic department should be in the jurisdiction of the athletic committee. And I think what is included in governance is if we have issues with reports, right? So whether it's governance stop with the athletic committee or whether it start, because I know we shouldn't just be over the money. I know we shouldn't just be looking at the budget or the contracts, right? Okay, more detail. When a coach is hired or when a search committee starts, are you made aware of that?
Sometimes.
We are not part of that process, so at some point we know.
But you have to approve the contract.
We approve the contracts.
Does
But
that contract
the legwork
come?
is done.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But you approve the contract. Does that contract for that employee, that coach, come to the athletic committee first? Or does it come to the full board?
It comes to the athletic committee. We generally meet all together. The entire board is at the committee meeting.
Right, but it comes to the athletic committee first.
Yes.
And then it passes out of, it's heard before the athletic committee, and at some point it's sent to the full board for a vote.
Well, that all basically happens at the same time. So the athletic committee meeting would take place at some point during the meeting. We discuss it. It's in an open forum like this.
Right.
And the whole board is present during that time.
What she's trying to explain is committee meetings occur on the same day as the board meeting, but the committee meetings occur in the morning, and then the board meeting occurs.
So that's what I'm saying. There's an athletic committee
Yes.
meeting, and then the board. Is the contract for an employee required, a coach, athletic director, required to pass the athletic committee before being passed on to the entire board?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say LSU hires someone in the athletic department. I understand you all don't do the legwork. Does that recommendation for a hire, do those hires have to be approved by the board? I'm trying to figure out what has to be approved by the board, what employees have to be approved, and what don't. I'm trying to kind of.
I understand. I do. It's it's really difficult to understand. So we approve it, but it's not like we are part of the process. We don't interview anybody. We don't actually, we take the recommendation of the athletic department. So when the athletic department makes a recommendation that they want to hire someone to be a coach, we accept that recommendation because.
So Senator Jackson,
Right.
to provide you some background that the lawyer would know that she wouldn't know.
Okay, good.
Coaches contracts in excess of $250,000 require board approval.
Okay.
Coaches without contracts whose salaries are less than $250,000 can be approved by the president.
Okay. So if an athletic employee is hired, that doesn't come before the board for approval. Only if the contract is above $250,000. Let's say if you hire someone with the athletic department that's not a coach, those don't have to be approved by the board?
There's a salary threshold for regular staff employees, so if it's below the salary threshold, no, it would not be approved by the board.
Okay, I get it. And that's what I'm trying to see, Attorney DeQueer. Where is the governance of the athletic committee? Like, where does it start and where does it end? I keep hearing, we just govern, we just govern. I keep thinking in my mind, sexual harassment suits, problems with the department, repetitive sexual harassment suits, it's governing. Why is that being excluded from governing?
I wouldn't say it's being excluded. What I'm saying is that we don't necessarily, most of the things we're hearing is news to us as well.
So you're saying that the board would not have been prohibited from receiving that information as long as it didn't disclose the identity of the students during the investigation, but it was only one given to you in your entire time in the board. Like, how long did you serve as athletic committee chair?
2 years.
In your 2 years,
That's the only incident I had ever
heard of. Okay.
been told that there was an investigation about.
And so what 2 years did you serve as athletic committee chair?
I think 2017 and 18, and then 18 and 19.
Okay. And so when you guys were apprised of this incident, was the resolution or the investigation or the details of our conclusion of the investigation, probably the best way to put it, was that reported back to you?
It was not.
You guys didn't think to ask?
Yes, and we continue to get, and it's ongoing kinds of answers.
And
Inconclusive kinds of
you-
answers.
So as the board, as the athletic committee, you were apprised of an incident of a woman being beat, supposedly, allegedly, let's say that because I want to be fair, allegedly, and the board never called in anyone that was investigating it to get a report or a conclusion of what happened?
We did not.
Okay. Did you all report it to the full board?
I don't know if it was or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So you were there when the buyout of Les Miles' contract happened?
I had just been appointed
Okay, so you had just been appointed.
in
And
August.
so you all were aware then, but no, when the buyout happened, you hadn't been made aware of any incidents with Les Miles.
No, I had not.
And so the Taylor Porter report that was sent to, when was that report sent, attorney?
May of 2013.
Okay, so basically you come in as a new board member. Were you made aware as a athletic committee at the time that Les Miles couldn't visit with females alone, that he had a school issued cell phone and that was the only way he could communicate with anyone at LSU, that if he walked in a room and he was the only male in there with a female, he had to leave?
I had no knowledge of that.
And so you served how long with Les Miles under these restrictions and the board wasn't made aware?
Only like 3 weeks, maybe a month.
But don't you think that you all should have been told that, because that's a part of governance if you have an employee on campus that can't be around female employees?
Absolutely. A person who cannot be, yes, absolutely. That should have been shared. That's not okay.
Now, this is a big question for me. We know some board members knew, but you're new. The buyout comes. When you all were discussing whether to, let's say, vote on the buyout or whether to fire him for cause, was any of the allegations that we currently are aware of with Les Miles brought to your attention? Were you informed of them? Did LSU or anyone there give you a report of it so that you could make a firm decision on whether or not to pay him $1.5 million after he had harassed our girls?
No, ma'am, I did not receive any of that information,
So,
nor was I part of any discussion like that.
so basically, you went off of a no cause termination.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
Okay. Did you guys have an opportunity, because of course you had to vote on a $1.5 million buyout. Did you have an opportunity to ask questions of his performance?
I'm sorry. I don't know. Did we actually have to vote on whether
You
or
didn't?
not that we would?
I'm not sure. I don't know if they had to vote, but I do know a termination is affected by the athletic director and the president, so that might not have had to go to the board.
Yeah, I'm not sure we voted on that. I think it was just a decision made by the athletic director and
But I thought that anything over $250,000 required board approval.
His contract would have already been approved. This
Right.
would just be terminating it.
So the president and the athletic director by themselves the board has to approve the contract. But the athletic director and the president can pay out $1.5 million without board approval?
I'd have to go look. I'd have
Well,
to go look.
I really
'cause-
want to know before the end of
Yeah.
this committee. Let me tell you something. I've never seen an operation where a board who has to approve the hiring doesn't get to dictate or vote on whether someone, and it should never be in Louisiana, spends $1.5 million on a person. And I'm not being derogatory toward you, but that is very concerning, that we would have paid anyone $1.5 million and the board that governs the school wouldn't have had some say in approving that $1.5 million payout.
We'd have to pull the minutes from 2013
I
to see
think
if
we
that went
have
to the
some
board.
minutes. When did that happen? Because I'm looking at 2013 minutes.
2016.
that would
It
have been
be-
September of 2016.
Okay, I'm gonna be looking, and because that's my concern, though, these are all 2013. Yeah, that's my question. My question, if you can pull it, is what had to happen for Les Miles to receive 1.5 million and get terminated for no cause when obviously who was the president then? I guess, did the new president know?
King Alexander was the president at that time.
Right, and so and he's not here to answer. I hope he comes to the next meeting. And I can't blame you for that in the sense of if you didn't vote for it, but I think we're going to wait on that answer. But I am very concerned about why I keep hearing today that governance does not include sexual harassment or being made privy to sexual harassment allegations, especially those that are serious in nature.
Right. I'm not, I don't mean to say that it doesn't include that, because it most certainly does. Something like that certainly rises to a level that we should know about it.
But I am shocked, and I want to be very transparent over the fact that there was an allegation of a young girl being beat, and that LSU may have dropped the ball on it, and the board at the time, who was made aware of it, didn't press for a conclusion of the matter in a report. That is on us. And when we get that, the committee wants to know, Attorney DeQueer, when you get those answers, if the board doesn't have to approve the buyout, will that policy change? Because I think that perpetuates a cover-up. When an athletic department can decide whether a person is terminated for cause or without cause and pay them millions of dollars, and the board doesn't receive a report on it, I really think that it should have stopped there. When they got ready to fire Les Miles, the board should have been made aware of his entire employment file, and I think that might be something we need to put in law. You know, you're getting ready to fire someone. Why isn't the board made privy to his entire employment file so you can determine whether or not this person deserves millions of our dollars? And I know you're still looking, and so that is my concern. That is a major concern, and we're going to be going back to that. But I want to say this on the record. There's not a woman sitting on this committee that would have heard of a domestic violence incident in this Capitol that wouldn't have pressed and demanded a report. And that's just being very honest with everyone sitting here. We have to be a little bit more diligent. And I understand the restraints that the board is under. You're not the president, you're not this. But I think at some point there needs to be something put in policy. That Title IX, and have we put that in policy? I hadn't read the whole thing, that when Title IX reports are given, that the board gets a monthly update even if they don't get details. These are the number of Title IX reports. These are the amount of Title IX reports that are in athletics.
That is
It's
something
this
that we
department.
have requested.
Right, and that should happen monthly. That really should, because I think in governing, you need that information. You know, and have you found that part?
His contract is about 3 different documents, all different amendments signed in different years. And I'm pretty good, but I'm trying to go through this as fast
No, I
as
understand.
can.
My question is the 2018. We did a buyout.
But the amendments don't all have separate termination clauses, so you have to cross-reference them.
Right, but I guess what I'm more concerned about is the year of the buyout. Whenever this board paid out, because it's the school, $1.5 million, did the board who had been appointed to govern the university? And do you have the terms of the buyout as well? But I just don't understand how $1.5 million slipped from our university and our board wasn't included. Because I think that was the massive cover-up. If you want to uncover something, say, oh, we're buying out, you want to pay him $1.5 million, let's see his entire employment file. I think at that point, the board would have been made privy to everything that was going on, right?
Absolutely.
And as a new board member, you would have had the information and you could have corrected this moving forward. But I think that all of us think that if somebody's paid out $1.5 million because, you know, without cause, you think as a new board member, he just didn't perform well on the football field. Our team is not performing well. We're buying out his contract. That's what we assume, right? We're not having such a good season. And so that bothers me more as we continue to talk about this, is that it's like new board members are coming on and they're still not being given the information.
We have to also, those employment funds have all of that information in it about investigations.
And Representative Davis is saying something that's true, that you have to make sure those employment files have everything in about the investigation. So I want to make sure moving forward, we do, that if someone is investigated, even if they're proven innocent, that should go in the employment file so people can know they're innocent. And that's one way. But I mean, I can imagine finding out through a report. After I've been on the board 2 or 3 years, that in my first month, like I guess you've had to find out that we paid someone $1.5 million who was harassing our girls.
Absolutely.
You know, that's not the way we handle business. It's shocking. Senator Mizell.
Thank you, Madam Acting Chair. I appreciate, I know you weren't here the last meeting, and you're picking up after a long day. I don't know if you all were in receipt of a statement that we received from former Supervisor Stanley Jacobs. We can make it available to you. It was something that came to the members just before the meeting. And I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but I think since you're on the board now, these are the areas of concern to me, because I mean, this is, to me, the whole point in our having a meeting, okay? One comment he makes is a determination was made by either Dr. Jenkins, president of the system, or Taylor Porter, that only the three of us, Bobby Yarborough, Hank Danos, and myself, would be in the know regarding this investigation. And this is referring to the Miles situation. The reason being that the female student under no circumstances wanted her name revealed, and we felt it vital to protect her privacy. Obviously, we were concerned about privacy for Coach Miles, as well as we did not know at that point if the allegations were true or not. So there you go. Further on, he says, at some point in time, I requested that Les Miles be brought to our group. I wanted to present the allegations to him and gauge his response to them, but we were advised that this was not appropriate. And I think that, you know, when we've been saying that about getting to the point of it, who would have said, who would have been the advisor? Was that I know you weren't there, Attorney DeQueer, but that's the concern to me. This board member obviously wanted to get a clear picture of what was going on, and he was told it would not be appropriate. And that is just a root of the problem, is that over and over, I've been seeing like 6 steps of an opportunity to step in and be honest. And every time somebody, and I don't know who this was, okay, but then he says several things. But this is his closing line. In closing, at no time during our investigation of Coach Miles did Joe leave a request to us that he be terminated. Any emails that were sent to King Alexander or Dr. Jenkins were done after the fact. In the course of him retelling what we've all talked about with what happened with Coach Miles, and this is a broader question to me because I've heard references to it several times today, they required him to use his LSU issued cell phone. What are the cell phones are people using, and why, if they've got an LSU cell phone, would they have to put something on another cell phone?
I cannot answer that question for you. I don't know anything about cell phones that are used by LSU employees.
Could you help us, Attorney DeQueer?
Yeah, my understanding, and Stephanie can add to this, is that coaches have to log certain phone calls because of the restrictions on communications
On the recruiting,
with recruits.
right.
So they prefer coaches to use school issue cell phones because the bills come to the school, and it makes logging the phone calls for recruiting compliance easier. In my review of the Les Miles investigation, he kept another cell phone because he knew the school would, ostensibly because he knew the school would be looking at the calls on one cell phone, and so to communicate with a student, he would use this other cell phone. And so they mandated that he only use his
Right.
school cell phone.
So it
That's the only, I mean, this is my presumption, having gone through this.
yeah. But you know, and in all fairness, I've heard references all day in the last meeting too about, I know these people, they're good people. Everybody thought Les Miles was just this crazy fella eating grass. They had no idea that this kind of stuff was going on. So we throw the term good fella around, and then we give them no oversight, and we say, just use your LSU issued phone, you'll be fine. When he's doing these clandestine things, and by absence of oversight, we're allowing it to happen. So I really would like to know more about the whole cell phone situation, but I appreciate Supervisor Jacobs being open and frank enough to send us something that basically included him in a situation that we've all had questions about. So I thought that was helpful. Senator, I have a question, but it's for later from somebody else. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I want to kind of follow up on the phone situation. So what about phones that are issued through or by the Tiger Athletic Foundation? Are those phones logged?
So the Tiger Athletic Foundation is a 501c3 that does the fundraising for athletics. So the phones are issued to department staff, and then TAF actually pays for them, but they're still athletic department property. We are issuing it to our employees. They're being logged. So that's a payment issue. It's not a.
So they are logged.
Yes, absolutely.
So we should be able to get those phone records.
Yep.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Senator Jackson.
I'm sorry. I had to leave. Mr. DeQueer, Attorney DeQueer, I know you're good. Have you found that yet? Because I know how you are. I went to school with your brother. You guys are well versed in the law.
Yeah, the notice provision in Les Miles.
Please give him the microphone, please. Yeah, thank you.
The notice provision in Les Miles' contract simply says it requires notice from the university. In checking with my office back on campus, they have advised me that that notice is considered a function of the athletic director and the president.
No, I understand about that notice. I'm talking about the 1.5 million.
Yeah, so the board approves the payment of the contract amount. The board would not have to approve the payment of the buyout provision because the buyout provision is part of the contract when the board approves.
So $1.5 million can go out of the university's budget to pay someone that's leaving without board approval.
The board approved the buyout schedule is part of the contract approval process. So
I understand you
yes,
approved that, but when we were ready to pay this out,
yes,
it didn't have to go before the board again.
no, not a second time.
Wow.
There's a schedule. If
No, I get the schedule, but this is the thing. They may be fired for cause, right? So what I'm saying is that you can be fired for cause,
Yes.
or you can be fired with no cause. So the board never hears how the determination was made to classify this termination for cause or no cause, which means we pay out $1.5 million. And I'm stumbling because I'm sitting here trying to just grasp my hand. I can't do it. Head. That's what I'm saying. I'm done. $1.5 million, right? And seriously, so I want to know if that's going to change. I really want to know, because if we're saying someone is leaving our university without cause and we owe them millions of dollars, I not only think the board should approve the amount we're paying them, even if it's in a contract. I think the board needs to research that person's employment file before we and really research the determination and how that process was made. Taylor Porter, for example, she said this, Davis, and this is serious. Taylor Porter has a report. Did Taylor Porter take any part in the review of his contract when he was terminated?
I don't know about 2016.
Okay. Who was the, I know you're the executive counsel now.
General
Who-
counsel, yes.
General counsel. Who was the general counsel then?
2016, it would have been Mr. Tom Skinner.
Okay, in 28, and you said he left in 2018?
No, it was I started February of 2020. I think he departed in maybe December of 2019.
But I mean, when did we pay Les Miles? See, I'm stuck on this $1.5 million. I'm stuck on paying somebody. I'm just gonna tell you. I keep saying Les Miles. When did he leave with our money after harassing our girls? I want to make that real clear. When did Les Miles leave with our money while harassing our girls and not being able to be in the room? And we said he didn't have calls. When did that happen?
I know that he left in September of 16, but the payout was when? November 15th of 2018. Was that when it was actually paid out? It was agreed to on November the 15th to pay out the 1.5 million. When it was actually paid out, I don't actually
When was the
have that
decision made to pay it
information.
out?
2018.
November 15, 2018.
Yeah. So in 2018, who was the general counsel?
It would have been Tom Skinner.
And he no longer works for us. He no longer works anywhere in the state of Louisiana for the state of Louisiana, right?
Right.
So he's no longer available for committee. So the athletic department records. Let's talk about that.
And just to put it in context, the termination in 2017 in his contract, the buyout was actually 12.9 million.
Help me understand.
But they negotiated.
Okay, hold on.
But they negotiated it down for prospective employment. So that's why you're talking about the 1.5 you hear reported.
Okay, so we spent 1.5 million.
I need to, and I'd have to confirm that number.
Because if
I
we
don't know
spent
it.
12.9 million, we can shut the committee down. I'm about to call the district attorney. Because y'all have robbed the state, like for real. And y'all laughing, but I'm serious. Now let me say this: if we spend 12.9 million, shut it down, get the district attorney, attorney general, and inspector general over at LSU. And I mean it, because we have schools who come in here asking for $5 million. We have Southern University who comes in asking for $5 million, $1 million for. We got what ULL, U, and Hammond, my beloved ULM, Grambling State University with buildings with ruins in them. You can drive through some of these campuses around the state, and they can't even get a good. Grambling just received about a year or two ago a good athletic workout facility. We're still building Grambling University State Library. This is about to get real personal to me. We still have kids staying in dorms with leaky roofs. So I know you have to get the information. I'm not fussing at you. You weren't there. Thank God you're there now. That's what happens. You know, are you a Southern grad? I don't want to give you a compliment if you graduated from LSU. Just checking. But I know your brother graduated from Southern University Law Center. And we're
We
proud
will
of
get
it.
the information.
Okay, solely I get it, because let me tell you, and this is where I get very serious. As I look at the ruin of buildings and facilities around this state, and it's going to be personal for HBCUs who are still waiting on their fair share of dollars. I don't care who raised it and what happened. For us to pay money to someone who sexually harassed our students without this board having the information they needed to make a valid decision, and it was not you as general counsel, but it was somebody who we paid good money to. It was somebody, you know, it's almost like the state is being raped over and over and over again financially with cover-ups. Oh yeah, who paid that out? And I know I need to get off the mic because I'm not emotionally ready for all this. This is
The state? Was it the state? Yeah.
yeah. Who paid it out?
It would have been TAF, Tiger Athletic Foundation.
Oh, Tiger
Or
Athletic
athletics.
Foundation. Okay.
Yeah. So we just use the Tiger Athletic Foundation to have a good time, pay out folks that we shouldn't be paid. No, I'm serious. Go ahead. Go to somebody else because my comments are gonna not be senatorial in a minute. As I look at the public defender's office who's begging for money because they're defending 300 and 400
Yeah.
people a month, one attorney. I mean, I can just, let's just talk about what's happening when we have yellow shirts every year here for parents for children with disabilities asking for just $2 and $3 more million for waiver programs so their children can stay at home and not facilities. I'm on drama because this, you know, I was good until I hit this. And we talking about $9 million buyouts for someone who harassed our girls. And I'm sitting here with a board member who's trying to be diligent that didn't even have the information when the buyout was effectuated. So this is what I'm going to ask for, because I know at some point my senatorial hat's going to go off and I'm going to go mom, aunt. And I'm not, you know, because, you know, I'm a mom, aunt, right? And I'm going to take the place of who I think these girls needed when they entrusted LSU to be their protectors, when their parents paid tuition to this great institution, when these board members were blindly led to pay someone that much money. So I'm going to request the records, because although we can't touch the Tiger Athletic Foundation and their money, that may not be subject to public records, the decisions made by that athletic department during that time are subject to public records. And I want them. I want to know who was involved, who made the decision to say no cause of action, who made the decision to ask the Tiger Athletic Foundation. Because people say, oh, no, it's not the state money, it's free. We got boys playing on that field every day. We got boys playing on the basketball court. We got girls with hopes of going to gymnastics and, you know, in Olympics. Every cent raised in that athletic foundation is based on the performance of kids we should protect. So I don't care if people consider it private money. It's on the back of kids we didn't protect. And when you take those children's backs and raise money, and you don't spend it on them or their programs, you give it to a coach, and not you. So hear what I'm saying. This is not directed to those at this table who didn't know, but you give it to a coach that repeatedly harassed young girls. It's not private money. It may be private legally, but the Tiger Athletics Foundation would not exist but for those athletes and those students. If you didn't have a football team, a gymnastic team, a basketball team, a baseball team, or whatever else, there will be no need. And all of that is our children. All of that. And I know I went off kilter, but somebody needs to say this. We can talk all the way we want about private money, but that private money is raised off of the performance of our children, and it should be used to enhance their programs. And at no time should someone who harassed these girls, killed their dreams, made them feel lower than low because a university didn't protect them, get that money to leave. They should have been escorted out of the door in handcuffs and made to face their day in court for what they did. But at no time should money raised on these children's back been paid to him. And I know you didn't know. And you're a mother, so you understand what I'm saying.
I do.
And when that hit the paper, I can only imagine how young ladies that had been harassed by Les Miles felt. I can only imagine that we paid him to leave after he harassed our students. And that's not on you. But I want to know who it was on, Attorney DeQueer. And I want to know who made the decision, where the documents, where the meetings. If it was the president at the time, I'm sure they have to leave their documents. And if we just don't have a paper trail, we're going to have to admit it. But these are private funds raised off the backs of our children that should go back to our children. And Tiger Foundation is set up to make sure these programs not only excel, but make national headlines, right? And giving that money away to someone whose employment file really showed the truth of who they were. We failed. We just didn't fail the girls that were harassed. We failed everyone at the university. We failed every student and every parent that trusts their money to us. We failed every citizen of Louisiana because their tax dollars go to LSU. We failed every university that has dilapidated buildings and subpar programs because we can't send money. Because at that same time, and I'm gonna end with this, Mrs. Chairman, because I'm serious, like this is unreal. At that same time that was happening, we were cutting higher education by 60%. We were cutting and raising students' tuition, and these schools and these universities were here with autonomy bills to raise fees and tuition on the backs of our parents and students while we paid someone to harass our girls. That, to me, is disingenuous not only to the board who had to sit through it and didn't know it, but to the legislators who thought they were doing the right thing and making sure that the students had what they needed. So we made students pay. Because what we cut, they paid. When Louisiana was in a deficit, they paid. While he got rich off of us. And it's not just him, but it's him with a $12-point-some million buyout that was negotiated down to whatever it was, and I think it was a tiered approach, so we don't know now. I want his employment file. I want every name of everyone that was in the room to make the decision to terminate him without cause. I want everything surrounding how we got to the point of paying him, and I know the board didn't do it. But I know if you would have known when you sat there for the 4 or 5 weeks or 6 weeks, I know you would have said, hold up, we're not paying this. And that would have been a governing decision had you all been given the information you needed. I want everything. Because I'm tired of playing games. And then I want to know if there's any employee left who made that decision. Anywhere in the state of Louisiana, regardless of what campus they're at. If they made the decision, if it's an attorney that's employed by the state, if anybody gave advice to pay him on his way out the door, I want to know. Because either they didn't know, but someone covered this up. And it's just time to know who covered it up. And there's other incidents, but on this one, it's time to know.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. Well said.